Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say gentlemen because I'm sure we have men amongst us. Welcome to Wimbiz Women in Politics Dialogue 2020. I'd like to welcome you all and our special guests as well. My name is Kemi Ogunyemi, and I'm the chairperson of the WIMPOL committee. In 2014, during the Wimbiz annual conference, a major subject matter emerged: the low representation of women in politics. More importantly, was the dearth of suitable qualified professionals in politics and the effect of this gap on national development. As a result, female involvement in politics and in public offices generally became one of the focal issues for Wimbiz in 2015. The goal of WIMPOL is to increase representation of women in public office through influence and advocacy, with the objective of growing female representation from 4% to 30%, in line with the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action 1995. I have a few announcements before we get into the program. The first one is that an evaluation link will be sent to you all in the follow-up email. Please endeavor to fill it. We want to hear your opinion about this webinar. We also kindly invite our dear participants who are not Wimbiz associates to become one today. And to those of us who are associates and yet to renew our membership, kindly do so. For inquiries, please contact via email membership@wimbiz.org. You can tweet and tag us on social media using the hashtag 2020WIMPOL, on webinar, hashtag WimbizWebinar, on LinkedIn, Women in Management, Business and Public Service, and on Twitter @Wimbiz. The Wimbiz 19th Annual Conference is scheduled to hold virtually on Friday, November 6, 2020. You can take advantage of the early bird registration and pay the sum of 25,500 Naira until the 30th of September. Now we will go into the matter of the day as I welcome the moderator, Simi Fajemiroku. Simi Fajemiroku is a member of our WIMPOL committee. She is a distinguished visionary offering a diverse career in driving significant and profitable growth via high volume projects in the management consulting sector. She stands at the forefront of policy advocacy, having spent the last decade supporting various arms of government and MDAs in Nigeria. Simi serves as the senior partner at Acropolis Consulting and provides general oversight of the firm. A calculated risk taker and thought leader with deep knowledge of sustainable public sector projects and community building. Simi has championed multi-layered public policy initiatives that have helped clients achieve groundbreaking results, embracing the core values of integrity, innovation, leadership, and growth. She led her team on the Presidential Campaign Council's Situation Room to deliver victory. She has been invited to serve on several committees on the presidential, state, and local government level. She has an unrivaled political network from the local grassroots level to the national stage based on her work in the community, and also one of the youngest female to run for public office in the Federal Capital Territory, which means Simi has actually got off the sidelines. Simi is a graduate of politics and international relations. She holds several certificates in project management, leader development program, and international negotiations. Thank you so much, Simi, for being our moderator today. And I'm going to hand over to you, and it's your show now. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Thank you so much to the WIMPOL committee who put this entire conversation and dialogue series together. I'm really, really super excited to be here. And thank you for that introduction. I need to say nothing else about myself, but I'm super excited to be here, not just because I'm a student of politics and I consider myself to be a up and coming politician. I'm also excited to be amongst the amazing distinguished speakers we have here today. This conversation is not just timely, but necessary. And as a final Wimpole Dialogue series in 2020, we hope this conversation will spark fires within qualified women to not just converse about politics, but to also run for office, and not just to run, but to also win. It's ambitious, and of course, much more needs to be done beyond talking, but we should never underestimate the power of stories. I know that when I ran for office for House of Representatives in 2018, I leaned on stories of those who had tried, of those who had lost, and those who had won. Despite the challenges I experienced when I ran, one thing I know is that I will never go back to the sideline. That option was closed for me. So introducing this topic, we know that in a few days, Nigeria will celebrate 60 years of independence. We thank God, but if the truth sets us free, then we all know that even without the COVID-19 pandemic, the state of the nation would have kept us in a somber mood concerning this topic that we're talking about today. As a nation, the joy of progress when it comes to women representation and leadership eludes us. We seem to be regressing with an average of elected and appointed women in positions in office at about 6%. We are far below the regional average of 23% and the sub-region average of 15%. You can see that we are no big brother in the area of inclusive politics, or should I say big sister, for the sake of this dialogue. After 2 decades of uninterrupted democratic governance, only 6 women have emerged as deputy governor. Nigeria is still yet to produce a female governor, but we hope that story changes in the next election. So getting off the sidelines needs no introduction. It's a clarion call to ensure that the story of our past as a country need not be the story of our future. If those of us who are equipped, who are blessed with the talent and the gift of serving people, actually get off the sidelines. So how do we do that? With me are people who are doing that and are here to share their experience on how they got off the sideline and how they got into the scary political arena. With us I will be introducing the governor of Kwara State, His Excellency Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, who made history by constituting a cabinet with over 55% women, the most gender balanced cabinet in the country. Prior to his foray into politics, he's a successful businessman in the oil and gas industry. He ran for office twice before winning on his 3rd attempt. So I'm really excited to hear about how he not only got off the sidelines, but kept trying. And for some of us who watched him from his campaign, the Otoge, hashtag Otoge that inspired a lot of us, we know that it's some of us have been watching him and we're huge fans here. Thank you very much, Governor, for being here with us. And I'm super excited about our amazing female senators that we have. And I'll be starting with the firebrand Senator Biodun Olujimi of Ekiti State. She's a proponent of the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill. Her influence is beyond the shores of Nigeria. And as she serves as the Vice President of ECOWAS Female Parliamentarians Association. And also, she's been the minority leader of the Senate. And she's a leader in her state chairman of the PDP in Ekiti. I'm super excited to have her on this panel. Welcome, Senator Olujimi. And next to Senator Betty Apiafi of Rivers State. She's an economist, a retired banker, school teacher, and former House of Rep member who served 3 terms in the House of Representatives. We need to know the secret formula of Senator Betty's formula for winning elections. Super excited to have her here. It wasn't easy, but we thank you for being here. Finally, we have our amazing Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo, our former ambassador to Ethiopia and Djibouti, permanent representative to Africa Union, and former House of Rep member of Cross River State. She's a lawyer and a development consultant, and she's a co-founder of the Gender and Development Action Organization. She'll be giving us a perspective beyond the political arena, also from the civil society organization. She's an academic, and I'm super happy to have her on board. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for being here. And to our distinguished audience, thank you for tuning in. Please feel free to comment on social media using the hashtag WIMPOLDialogue 2020. And we will be having room to hear from you at the end of this session. So please post your questions in the Q&A box throughout the event as they come to you, and we'll try to get through as many as possible. We hope you learn. And most importantly, we hope you enjoy spending this Saturday afternoon on how to move this amazing country forward. Thank you very much. So, Secretariat, we'll be starting with a quick poll just to test the tempo from the audience. I'll have 2 questions from our first poll. So if we can have that poll up, please, before we go into the speakers discussion, where we're going to have a lot of fun learning from. So here we have the first poll. And the first question is, what is the biggest barrier of getting off the sideline in politics? Is it capital? Is it gender-based violence? Or is it the political party structure? We would be taking that vote now, and we have about 30 seconds. So if we could please vote. And then we'll be moving on to the next question, where it says, do you think having more women in politics will improve governance in Nigeria? Yes, it will. No, it will not, or you're not sure. Please vote. We have 30 more seconds before we close the poll. Thank you very much to our secretary. We'll have to close our poll so we can get into our speakers discussion. Interesting. So our first poll shows that for what people feel, our audience feel, that the biggest barrier to getting off the sideline in politics is political party structure. Senator Olujimi, you'll be speaking to that very soon. The second, do you think having more women in politics will improve governance in the country? We have 90%. Yay! So we have lots of women on our audience. Thank you so much. Thank you, Secretariat. We can move into the speakers discussion now. Thank you. So we're super excited. We have about an hour for this segment, and we're going to be squeezing our juicy stories from our speakers today. And we'll be starting with the Executive Governor of Kwara State, Abdurrahman Abdulrazak. And the first question I have is this. You have actively participated in politics for over a decade. You ran for office twice before winning the 3rd time. You pretty much epitomize the theme, getting off the sideline. Knowing how discouraging the political system can be, what going? Did you have family members that said, okay, enough is enough, let's focus on business? Did you have friends that said, why are you trying again? Did you have people that discouraged you? I mean, why did you do it the first time, second time, and then try again the third time, knowing each time resources being spent, time, energy, and someone has described running for politics as preparing for the Olympics. It takes all of you. Your Excellency?
Okay, thank you, Simi. Good afternoon, all. Glad to be on this platform. I missed it last year, but I'm glad to be here today. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, politics. I've always had a passion and vision for the state, for development, to see improvement in the lives of people, standards of living, SDG goals. But over the years, I just get disappointed that governments don't deliver. Now, that's what motivates me to say that I can be there, I can deliver, I can make it, I can push people to do things. People go into politics for different motives. Generally in Nigeria, most people see it as a business, a way to improve their lives. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you have to really understand your motive of going into politics. Is it to improve the lives of others, your community, your nation? When I see that nothing is being done in that area or not enough is being done, that motivates me to keep going, to say, look, this thing can be done. And the push is necessary. I stuck to it because I believe I can do it and I believe I can get there. I'm here now and I'm trying to push and do the best I can. And I'm glad the people of the state felt that this is. I'm glad the people of the state felt the way I feel, that enough is enough. And that's why we came up with the mantra, Otoge, which sank with the people. And we're good with it. Thank you.
Okay. Governor, we're going to ask you a quick follow-up question before I head over to Senator Olujimi on the business of politics. A follow-up question is, the people in the audience who will be listening today who have tried before, like myself, and like, we're doing that again, or the people who are yet to try, and your passion, yes, and your frustration with the lack of good governance. But what did you do in the meantime, between times of each election? Because I find a lot of people feel lost. Okay, you've lost an election. What do you do next? Like, how did you keep going? Like in the between times, how did you maintain a political structure, which is pretty expensive? So how do you, in between times, how do you maintain a structure to make it possible for you to even try again?
Okay, you put up a quiz now. And
obviously, Your Excellency.
Barriers. You put up a quiz now about barriers, and it picked political party as an issue. Now, you have to first maintain your contact with the political structure you want to use. That is the political party. You have to make them happy in the sense of making them happy. You have to have a connect with the party because they believe either they're in power or they're not in power. If your political party is not in power, then somebody has to maintain that structure. So they believe those who have aspirations are those that should maintain. You have to engage in social issues. Even weddings, people giving birth, community issues, legal issues involved in community intervention. So you have to engage your community and make sure you're there for them all the time. You are a phone call away. It's expensive, but the fact that you're there for them, they will always key into with you. But sometimes if you don't do that, they just feel, oh, this person is turning up for election, let's collect the money and the person goes away. But if they see that you're consistent with them, they'll take you more seriously. So you need to constantly engage the political system, the party, the stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So consistency is key. Party, stakeholders, community, constant engagement, attending weddings, attending ICOMOS, attending community. Thank you very much. Over to Senator Olujimi. I've heard you say, Senator, that the business of politics is expensive. Business, as you said, spending power. How do women raise funds to run in our climb? How did you raise funds in your first run? Senator Olujimi, over to you.
It's good to be on this platform. And of course, you have Amazons on the platform, people who have been there and have tried it severally. But let me say before I go on that this internet is very unstable. I do not know why, but I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Thank you. Raising funds for elections when politics is no tea party, you know it, you've been there. And getting off the sidelines means you must really get off. There's no halfway through that. And I have been lucky. I keep saying it to people. I had great mentors who saw the need to support me. And that I can say is no longer as possible as it used to be in the past. In the past, we had parties that were anchored along ideological lines, and there were stakeholders who were in those parties who were willing to move the party forward, and they were willing to look at people who they felt had the political skills to use, and they pushed us forward. But raising funds to keep political structures is the hardest for women because you see, we don't have associations that are strong enough like the men have. We kudos to people like Ambassador Nkoye Toyo that have over the years been pulling us together and ensuring that we have a voice and we can talk about finances and we can talk about structures. But in the past, international bodies were of great help. But more than anything else now, anyone that wants to go into politics and wants to be taken seriously must have his or her own finances. You must have a second address. By second address, I mean you must have set for yourself a living that can bring the basics, which means when you need to go out on campaigns, you can fund it and wait for the big ones that you can now raise funds outside of yourself. But for now, there's nothing you can do without having funds of your own. You must first establish yourself properly and be able to come up with little things. His Excellency told you that you must attend parties, ICOMOS and co. It's a lot more than that. People wake up in their homes and feel that they came off on the wrong side of the bed and they call you up because you're looking for the political space and they say, I need money. If you say you don't have it, that's the end of the votes from there. And it's a big problem for us as women. But like you said, you must come off the sidelines for you to see the whole picture. When you're outside, you see parallax, you see very wealthy politically savvy women. But when you get into it, you know that they are actually not rich. They're just struggling from day to day. And that's what I believe all of us are doing. And until we can come together as an entity and look for a way to support each other financially, we wouldn't have done enough for ourselves. But beyond that, we need to have a law that will make government either leave spaces for us, for our gender, so that we can compete amongst ourselves, albeit cheaply, to get into positions and fill those positions, or government puts together a fund that will assist female politicians. We must work at that. And the only way to get out of this reduction on yearly basis, you can see where we are now. We're so few. Good people are out there. And I believe until we do that, we wouldn't be doing to our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Before I head over to Ambassador Nkoyo, I will follow up. I will give a follow-up question to what you've said about mentors and associations. Really say, okay, so you had a rich political CV, you're a commissioner, you had served on different appointed positions before you went to okay, so it's easy for you to say, like, make your money and use your money for politics. I think it's a struggle that people have, that, okay, why would I make my money? It's such a zero-sum game that throws into it where there are no guarantees that I might even get the ticket of my party. So I'm going to probe you further, because people say it's because your rich political CV able to be finances were much easier. Is that the truth, or was it much harder for you?
It was much harder for us. Well, let me now tell you the truth. When I came up, we had few women that were struggling to get into the political space. So we had mentors who pushed some of us into it and sustained us while we were there. And I must, and I know the governor will understand what I'm saying. My major person that pushed me into wholesale politics was Dr. Olushola Saraki. He saw good in me. And I wasn't from his state, but he thought there was need to mentor women. And I was one of those he mentored. And he sustained us. He ensured that at every election that we were going to be part of, he put money into it for us. He gave us the guidelines. He ensured that the party took cognizance of what we were doing, and he ensured that we got tickets. That is what people need to do for each other now. We need to ensure people get tickets. Getting tickets is the most formidable thing in politics. And everyone on this platform will tell you it is the most difficult thing to get over. It is not only about money, it is about the people that are there. Most men don't want women there. We struggle, we fight, we work hardest. But if people learn to help us get tickets, we'll do well when we get there. We've shown that we can do well, but getting tickets from political parties is the main issue. Congresses, campaigns, then primaries, that is a money guzzler. And for me, like I said, I've had plenty of good people, albeit most of them men, who have supported me all the while.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for allowing us deep dive in and for your honesty on that. I'll be moving over to Ambassador Nkoyo. And I would like you to show us Senator Olujimi mentioned laws and what that has to play in the role of getting more women off the sidelines, and not just getting them off the sidelines so that we have a long line of disappointments, but getting off the sidelines to actually win. Senator Nkoye, from your experience on the continent, what are some of the global regional trends we're in the leadership? We know all over the world, even in the best, well, there's nothing as the best democracy, but the most developed democracies, they still have a problem with representation. At least that double percentage. Nigeria is less than 10%. I mean, it's appalling, it's embarrassing, but can you inspire us at least? What is going on in terms of the trends across the world? And what is it that audience can latch onto as hope? In particular examples, what's going on in Namibia, Kenya, and possibly even the US. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ambassador Nkoye.
Well, let me start by saying how grateful I am to Wimbiz for bringing me onto this platform of very distinguished leaders of our country, particularly His Excellency, the Governor of Kwara State. I'm indeed very grateful to be here. And I'm sandwiched between two very, very accomplished political figures in our country. Senator Olujimi is a household name, and so also is Senator Betty Apiafi, who is also the chair of the Committee on Women Affairs in the Senate. Incidentally, Senator Olujimi is also the minority chief whip for the Senate itself. This is an array of great women and men, and I'm extremely grateful to be part of this. And Simi, thank you for taking me a little bit away from the practical realities of trying to become a politician in Nigeria. I have been part of it, so I could speak to that. But my tone is very different from that of the practical politicians on the ground. You've asked me to take a quick look at what's happening elsewhere. And it is important that I start by saying that what is happening elsewhere is too important to be ignored. Your Excellency, I am so delighted. Your record in Kwara State gives me much joy. And I also wish that many of your brother governors can do the same thing that you have done. Excellency, it's embarrassing to me as a woman who's been in this sphere of work in the last 3 decades to see that there are many states in the country where women have never come to the National Assembly from. I can't explain. I will do so by comparative work across Africa and elsewhere. To say that it's no longer a choice we can afford to ignore. We can't afford to ignore this. Your Excellency, can you imagine when history is written 10 years, 20 years from now, that you were part of a team that had states that ignored the need for this change and transformation that our country needs so badly? And I'll share the experiences of other countries to show why we as Nigeria, the headquarters of poverty in the world, cannot afford to do this. Because most of about what we can do to change that. Let me just quickly say that if my network gets unstable, sometimes it's better for me to put off the video so that I will reduce the bandwidth and get better audio. And if that happens, please forgive me. I will do that. Is it okay? Is my network okay? Okay.
Can hear
you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
So very quickly, the story of Africa is outstanding. It used to be the Scandinavian countries that we used to admire and say that, oh, how great Norway, Sweden, and all those countries are in terms of the equal representation of men and women. But that's changed now. The fast track is actually in Africa. In Africa, we have seen over the very short term that a country like Rwanda has the highest ratio of women in parliament in the entire world, with 64% of their legislative seats. In Senegal, Seychelles, South Africa, 40% of parliamentary seats are held by women. In Mozambique, Angola, Tanzania, and Uganda, 35% are held by women. This is in comparison to the United States that has only 18%. We have also seen presidents in Africa. We remember Ellen Jolliffe Sirleaf and Joyce Banda. We've seen speakers in many parliaments across the continent and even at the hem of regional bodies. At the time, the African Union was headed by the South African former minister, Mrs. Zuma. So we have seen women in Africa actually hold very outstanding things. And I can say very quickly that because of the insensitivity of Nigeria to this issue, when you go across the world, you find African women from very small countries holding very significant positions. But Nigerians never send their women out. And at those international levels, it's a question of parity. At the African Union, it's a question of parity. There are times when you have to go, a seat is completely reserved for women, and because Nigerians have never sent their women out, they don't even have the candidates to sit and compete in those positions. So we're not doing ourselves a favor by ignoring this issue. We need to get more interested in this issue. And very quickly to show you some of the tracks that we have used in Africa to get there, because sometimes people say, is it doable? Yes, it's doable. Some of the parts that we have said is that we've used quotas in fast tracking this. We call them electoral quotas. And there are three major basic forms of this electoral quota. The first is you have reserved seats, which you have in countries like Uganda, where the seats are reserved, and the constitution, and you know of the cuff where you are going and which seats are going to women. In other countries, you have voluntary quotas, and we see this in the ANC, and we see it in SWAPO, in Namibia, where the countries themselves, the leading and ruling political parties in those countries say, as a matter of our own internal philosophy and values and position, we are going to recognize, and these are largely countries that came out of struggles like the one in apartheid that we saw in South Africa. At a point in time, I remember that Ambassador Zuma herself was being considered to become the president of South Africa. But let me caution, because oftentimes, and I was at the National Assembly, when these materials and bills come up for consideration, and immediately we're told that this is not acceptable in Nigeria because of our culture, because of our religion, because of the things that pervade and keep us back. I need to return to the fact that there are men and there are men. There is masculinity and there is toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity affects men and women, doesn't just affect women. A man can be a man. And I don't think women are saying they want to become men. Women want to be women, but they just want to be partners in the development of their country. When toxic masculinity comes in, it begins to say, I am the only one who has the answer. That kind of masculinity is problematic even for men, because there are also men who believe that they need the partnership of men and women in order to develop our country. And I think that's what His Excellency, the Governor of Kwara, has basically said with the appointments he made in his government, to say that we also need the women to be part of this development. So we must be careful to name the men who say that our country is not ready to have a partnership between women and men in building the country's future. Now, let's talk about some of the countries. We say religion, for example, does not allow us. Tanzania, these are countries that have significant Muslim populations, for example. Tanzania, Mauritania, Senegal in particular, Eritrea, Sudan, next door in Niger. Niger is just beyond Katsina State, next door in Niger. Somalia, these are states that have all adopted quotas within their constitution. These are Muslim majority countries: Libya, Algeria, Tunisia, Mauritania, and Morocco. So we really cannot continue to argue that this whole question of representation is unacceptable. And even in the Middle East countries, which are traditionally seen as difficult for women, increasingly we're beginning to see a change in terms of the way this is going. So this is why I think that we are extremely privileged to have this platform of people who are in a position to influence the next constitutional project. I am very grateful to the Senate, particularly to the office of the Deputy Senate Leader, who, as one of the items for consideration in this constitutional review process, is talking of the question of gender. I think this is outstanding. We must support him, we must commend him. The gender has become a major plank in our constitution. This is the time for us to begin to see how we can change things around and throw things into our constitution that allows us to get going in terms of the parity between. I will return later on in my presentation to the position of Kenya to speak of the recent judgment that came out of the Kenyan High Court. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So to say that the constitutional process is important. The other thing I need to say why we have to think more about the inclusion of women and men is think about what's happening in the Northeast. Many families displaced, many families female-headed household. The context in which we behave, we exist today is very, very different from the context in which we existed a few years ago. We need to take into account the changing structural nature of Nigeria and address those things. We have done things in the past. Senator Oluchimi has alluded to this by saying that, did you say something?
Yes, I would like to head over to Senator Betty.
Okay.
Just because of running out, we'll come back to you on the Kenya. But thank you so much, Ambassador, for even mentioning some glimmer of hope in what's going on in Nigeria, especially concerning the constitutional process. I'm not sure a lot of people know about that. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for referencing examples on the African continent, because a lot of the times when we reference Western democracies, it just seems so far, you know. So it's good to know that right, our next door neighbors are doing these things, and we absolutely have no excuse. Thank you for your insights. I'll be heading over to Senator Betty, and right after I'll come back to the governor on the cost of his decisions. Firstly, Senator Betty, we've heard from Senator Oluchimi, we've heard even from the governor, and in regards to getting that party ticket, and you have gotten the party ticket 3 times since 2007 from the House of Rep, and also now as a senator in Rivers State. And I guess the audience I would like to chime in on behalf of the audience and say, what is that winning formula you had within your political party structure that is extremely, to quote Ambassador Nkoyo, has a toxic masculinity from the ward level to the local government level, to the state level, to the national level of these party structures? How did you keep getting the tickets for your party? How did you manage the political party structure? How did you even get it the first time? And how did you manage a political party structure to keep getting it, where they didn't say, enough, madam, it's enough, we're giving it to somebody else? Senator Betty, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. I'd like to thank all the other speakers who have made comments on this issue. And I'd like to commend the governor of Kwara State for what he's doing for women, and tell him that we are expecting more, and I'll tell him exactly what we want from him. I'd like to also commend my governor, the governor of Rivers State, Barrister Wike, for being very gender sensitive. And maybe that's what I would also like the governor of Kwara State to look at. In Rivers State, we have 23 local governments. And of these 23 local governments, we have 23 women as vice chairman of the local governments. And recently, we lost a local government chairman. So one of those vice chairmen became the local government chairman. We have 72 councillors, female councillors, across the local governments in Rivers State. Now, why am I bringing up the local government chairman issue and the councillor issue? This is where the grassroots politics starts. And it's important that if women have to actually make an impact in politics, they start from the grassroots and lay the foundations that will pull them up. Some of us, we are not that lucky to start from the grassroots, but I started straight from House of Representatives, but I was lucky. I had an outstanding mentor, a female mentor, the wife of the executive governor of Rivers State. At the time I was running election, Justice Mrs. Mary Odili. I owe her a lot because she stood out when the toxic masculinity, as Ambassador Nkoyo said, when it started to manifest, she stood out and said, no, let's go for proper primaries, you know. So the mentors I've had have actually helped me a lot in coming thus far. And like Ambassador Ntoyo said, if the toxic male that we have in our political system don't want the women to grow. I come from a local government where there used to be a lot of violence in my local government, Odua local government in Rivers State. And it was like, when I came out to run election, everybody was like, oh, are you sure you're going to cope? They shoot gun at elections, they kill people at election. I said, no, I'm going to run election, but I'm going to make sure we stop shooting guns and we stop killing people. And that was how we started. But you have to do a lot of work. And I keep saying that really and truly for anybody who wants to go off the sideline, if you want to come into politics, politics is like any business. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to go into business, there are certain risks you have to take. And there are certain things you have to do. It boils down to about the same thing. You know, you have to know the market, or you have to look for the niche in the market and put yourself together to compete. And it has not been an easy journey for me. Like you rightly pointed out, I've done 3 tenures of the House of Representatives, and out of those 3 tenures, I ran 4 elections. Because one of my elections was, I lost it in court, so I had to go back to run another election. And then coming to the Senate, I tell you, was difficult. Because the primaries, again, like one of the speakers has said, makes it so difficult because the men don't want you to come out. The men don't want to give you a chance. So having your primaries is quite difficult, and you really need to have multiple streams of income as a woman to be able to come into politics. I know that is discouraging for the young girls, but for some of us, we're lucky. We had worked. I mean, I came from the private sector. I was a banker for 18 years. I left banking as a deputy general manager before I went into private business and then politics. So that gave me I had some money of mine, and I have some income coming from outside. Unlike the men, women hardly have people who will sponsor them financially in politics. But the men will always have support from men who will give them money. Of course, not that women don't want to support women, but because women don't have the money to support other women. And so you have to have that major capital issue. If you watched the voting for the poll we did, I voted capital instead of political structure. Because if you have the capital, you can work with the political structure. Just like His Excellency said, that you have to maintain relationship with the political party. How do you maintain a relationship with the political party if you want to run an election? You maintain a relationship with them, with money. So for me, capital is actually the most important that you need to fund your processes. Unless, of course, you're lucky to have mentors who are willing to fund you through the process. But it's definitely not an easy venture. But again, like I said, it boils down to the same thing.
Senator,
sorry? If you want to go into private business.
I'm going to quickly intervene and say, okay, does one mentor be a mentor? You just have one mentor that sponsors you and you're good? Or is it one mentor stands by you and then it draws other in? Because the structure is beyond one mentor, I believe. But does one mentor give you that credibility that brings in other people to, believe in you and also sponsor you?
Well, when I mean mentor, your mentor doesn't necessarily have to sponsor you. The mentor can just be there to speak for you when there is need for you to be spoken for. Maybe when decisions are being made about issues, the mentor might be there, or the mentor might just simply say, let's have a proper, free and fair primaries. Like what happened to my senatorial election. If not that my governor insisted that we must have a free and fair primaries, I would have been rigged out.
Okay.
So if you don't have mentors who can speak for you, not necessarily funding you, but who can even speak for you before you even talk about the funding. And that is why I actually believe that for us to be able to have more women in politics, we must have to raise funds. We must have a fund. We don't have to wait for government. We should put together women, including us, and women who are out there, business women who can raise money, to have money and kept aside. Anybody, whenever anybody wins their primaries, you're sure to have certain amount from that pool of funds to fund yourself. If we don't do that, it's going to be very difficult for women.
Thank you so much, Senator Apiafi. I will be heading over to Governor to ask him. Everyone has thanked him for being the leader in creating the first gender-friendly cabinet of our climb. Governor, were you not? Why did you do that? Number one, because I thought it was interesting for us to ask you why, and two, what was the backlash? And three, were you not thinking of your second term? So if you could just, because I just want us to be able to appreciate that it wasn't a decision, a simple decision that was made, but I want you to just go back to that. Thank you. Yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Amy. I think the question is why, and was there a backlash, right?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Why?
Yes, we can hear you.
Why? It's a no-brainer for me. I didn't go out to set out to achieve a record, per se. It wasn't about SD5 when we started this. When I started my business, it was women that I worked with and worked for me. I've never actually worked with a man. I've never employed a man. The only men I've employed are drivers and clerks. So in terms of managing my business in the oil sector, it was just women. So I knew how effective they have been for me, and how they propelled my business, organized multitasking and all that. So I felt, and also relating with men in political parties, I saw that, look, there's a difference between being in a political party and in government. In government, you want to deliver. I thought I need women to deliver. That was the basis of my thinking that I should have women in there. And so that's the reason. And in getting there, I've done it. And it goes beyond that. River State has done very well to start from the basics, going to local governments and building it up from there. Now, we are going from top to bottom. We've done that with civil servants, permanent secretaries. 50% of our permanent secretaries are now women. We're going down to directors and assistant director level. So we're taking it down. The head of our head of service is a woman. The head of our civil service commission is a woman. The head of our inland revenue is a woman. So we're really handing over the state to women to propel, to push things forward. Now, it's also left to women to also pull other women up, because yes, I'm doing my best. The ball is in their court to engage each other, network amongst themselves, and see how they can pull themselves through. Yes, you get backlash from men who believe they must get this position, it's reserved for men. I asked each local government, stakeholders, gatekeepers to forward names to me for inclusion, for selection in cabinet positions or other positions. And all the time, 100%, I receive names of men. Men have been recommended for positions now. So want me to say, okay, fine. The threat is they'll tell you, no second term for you. We're waiting to see how you're going to cross the hurdle again. You need to be focused to deliver on your 4 years. Forget about second term. You want to leave a legacy, you want to leave a good template for others to follow. So that's why I ignore the backlash. Yes, definitely it's there. People are not happy. As I speak to you, several people are not happy, but we need to engage each other. We have wives at home, daughters at home. We don't have to have a glass ceiling for women. Let's shatter the ceiling and let them aspire to be what they need to be. So for Kwara, we're heading this direction, and I believe there will be no turning back so long as the women also pick up the gauntlet and say, yes, this is our time, and we're going to sustain this momentum of moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We have a few more minutes for this segment before we move into our next poll, and then we get to hear from the audience. So I'm going to move to Senator Olujimi. Senator Apiafi has challenged River State and showed that local politics in River State is representative of a lot of women. I'm really happy she shared that statistics with us. And so we're going to look over to Ekiti and find out what's going on your ward, from your ward level to your state level, especially as a party leader, chairman, a senator. If it's not something like Rivers, what are you doing to push that representation from the grassroots up? Thank you very much. Over to you, Senator Olu. Sorry, we need to unmute you. We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you now. Yes, we can hear you now.
I just want to congratulate the governor of Kwara again. I believe Kwarans are all gender sensitive, and the prophet women, I've seen a few of them, so I know what I'm talking about. On my part in Ekiti State, we have a bit of a rough and tumble right now. As you know, I am the only one that returned out of everyone in the party in Ekiti State. So I happen to be a standalone. And it's not only a standalone, I came in a bit late into the Senate. But what we're doing right now is to ensure that with our congresses, we bring up more women. We're asking for women to be part of this process. It's the willingness to be part of the process that is first on the list or on the checklist, because you must first be a part of the process for anyone to mentor you, to push you on. But for now, in Ekiti, I'm sure you've heard about upheavals, and it is only due to the fact that most of the men believe the woman cannot lead them. And that is the crux of the matter. And I believe that is what we're all talking about now, because we have the qualities required to lead anywhere. But then I don't think it's our culture. I think it's a mindset which we must shatter whichever way we can, that women cannot lead men in this process. We have seen so many, like Ambassador Nkoye Toyo pointed out. And we've seen that there are fantastic governors, like the governor of Rivers State, who has endeavored and has been very deliberate in putting women squarely in positions of authority. We will do that in Ekiti as we go along, because 2022 is our next elections, and the driving force in Ekiti is really women and youth. And so we will endeavor to do all that for our women, but it's also important for the women to be willing to come on board.
Thank you very much, Senator Olujimi. Before I head over, we have 1 more minute for Ambassador and Senator Apiafi before we head over to the second poll. But Olujimi, I like the fact you mentioned press. I like the fact those are words you don't hear. People just talk about politics and they talk about the the primaries. In fact, they rarely talk about primaries. People go straight into the election as though you just drop from somewhere and enter the election. So Congress, I've attended a few myself, and learning from what Senator Apiafi said about her area being very violent and that being about guns. And when she got there, she said no more. in Congress, even getting inside can be so masculine. You are fighting, you are pushing, So are there practical things that for your next Congress that you'll be hosting that could just make it like just not realistic, so because that turns a lot of women who are willing, but if you have to fight to get into the arena, your wig is in one place, your shoe is in another. These things I saw, myself. So I think just simple practical things you will do at the next Congress just to make sure that women don't see and then turn back at the gates.
No, we'll get there eventually, but then that's the way it is for now. But what we have been doing is to ensure that all our women coming together. And so when they're in, they're in. But you really cannot control, you can't control that with the congresses, because each group is fighting for their own. And whether you like it or not, every woman that is in politics is so inclined, because you know that you have to fight. It's not a tea party. So all of us know how best to get in there, and we will help all the fragile ones to get in. When next you want to go into a Congress, let me know. I'll send a few people who will assist and make sure nobody disturbs you.
Thank you very much, man. Senator PFP, in 1 minute. Please, I'm so happy with the information you shared with us. And I would just like, you said, look, when you got inside, you're like, look, this is not going to be violent. We're not going to be about arms and guns. How did you toxify, if that's the word, your space in your local politics? Like, again, what practical steps, did you take as a leader, as a female leader, just to make sure that, look, when you said no arms, no guns, that was exactly what happened. Thank you very much. Over to you, Senator Piafi.
Thank you very much. Well, the first step was to mobilize women, because these are the mothers, these are the wives, these are the sisters, these are the aunties, and women are peacemakers. So the first step was to mobilize women, get the women to get involved. And you'll be shocked when you go to the local level, the type of women you will see, women who may not have any form of education, but I tell you, they're fantastic politicians. So mobilize those women, got them in. Then, of course, again, one of the major challenges we have in most of our local areas is the lack of development. The local governments, like for instance, my local government had no electricity when I came into position. So, I mean, you made sure that attention was drawn to your local government, development got to your local government. And once development gets to your local government, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we, Senator.
Yeah, once development gets to your local government, you start, the people will start having confidence in you. So a lot of the young boys, we had to talk to them, explain to them that they need to have a better life. They need to come back into town, have a meaningful life, make their contributions to development. And then, of course, you start training them. Luckily, I mean, you must have heard about what they call constituency projects. Most of those projects use in training, empowering these young people. And in the process, they now understand they have to come back into town to live. Of course, they're young men, they're not getting any younger. They want to get married, they want to have a family, and gradually they start getting integrated into regular life. And of course, one lesson you must learn as a politician is never to use those youths, those misguided youths, for your political pursuit. Because if you use them, then it means you're encouraging violence. But if you don't use them, then you're not encouraging violence. And once they know you're not using them for anything, they will get out of violence. That's just what I would like to add.
Thank you so much, Senator Piafi. Thank you. Before we close the segment, we'd love to hear back from Ambassador. And if you could just share with us that amazing what happened with Kenya, what happened in Kenya, and also basically what do you see happen the constitutional process? If we just answer that in 2 minutes so that we head to the segment. Thank you so much, Ambassador. for giving us hope and giving us reference points. So if you could just speak to that in 2-3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you again, Simi, and I want to thank our very distinguished panelists. I know that some women have become men in this game, but I think for more people to leave the sidelines and come onto the mainstream, we need to have constitutional or legal reforms. That's the one way we can guarantee that people don't have to wait to have arms or money and many other processes. Recently in Kenya, the Supreme Court has asked everybody to go back to elections. It has disbanded everything and said, go and start elections. This is what the judge said, and I'm going to read just this and close. Given the wordings of Article 261 of the Constitution, Kenyans clearly understood the possible cultural resistance to the transformational ideas on gender equality in the Constitution that the Constitution would face. However, they carefully designed enforcement mechanisms of dissolution of parliament under Article 261(7), irrespective of the consequences. It clearly, this radical remedy Kenyan desired to incentivize the political elites to adhere to and fully operationalize the transformational agenda of the Constitution they bequeathed to themselves in 2010. In the circumstances, let us endure pain if we must, if only to remind ourselves as a country that choices, and particularly choices on constitutional obligations, have consequences. Let us endure pain, if only to remind the electorate to hold their parliamentary representatives accountable. Let us endure pain, if only to remind ourselves that as a country, being a democracy that has chosen to be governed by the rule of law, we must say no to impunity and hold everyone accountable to their actions or omission. In the result, Your Excellency, the Constitution overrules the position that we find ourselves in. When the Constitution does what it needs to do, a lot of other things will fall in place. We have an opportunity to change our Constitution. We have a champion in the room, in His Excellency, the Governor of Kwara State. And I have no doubt that between the two excellency, the senators and His Excellency, this meeting is definitely going to lead to profound changes in our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Okoye-Toye. And that wraps up this segment of the panel discussion. And we will be moving immediately into the next poll, and which will just be for a minute. And now we'll go into the Q&A session, from where we get to hear from our amazing audience that have spent time with us today. So Secretariat, can we pull that second poll up? So on our second poll, from our stories, from our amazing and distinguished speakers, are you inspired the sideline and put yourself forward to hold elective or appointive positions in politics? Yes, I am. No, I'm not, or not sure. I know where I stand, especially after Senator Luigi's promise of support. So we have about 30 seconds before we move into the Q&A session. Okay, Secretary, can we see where we are? It might be a bit early, but let's see where we are with the. Oh wow, okay. So it shows that 76% of our audience are inspired to get off the sideline. We still have 16% unsure, and 9% absolutely no. Well, we pray that the 16% unsure and the 9% no, I'm not. Well, even if you're not inspired to go forward, we pray that you support someone around you who is. So thank you very much. Of course, this is because of what people have heard from our amazing and distinguished speakers. And so we'll be moving into the next session where we get to hear from our And our first question, there are many questions about sponsors. So our speakers have sparked an issue here. Now, how do we ensure a sponsor, one who supports a candidate's political bid, but leaves her to do her job post-election, doesn't become a godfather, in parentheses, one who supports a candidate, but the full allegiance post-election, often at the expense of the electorate? The issue of godfather. Controlling the sponsor, trying to control governance post-election. I'm sure everyone on this panel has had some kind of major or minor experience with that. I would like the governor to tell us, to start with that question, and then anyone else can jump in, because when your election campaign is about Otoge, I wonder if you if you have a godfather who would dare to control governance post. I mean, but how did you manage that? How did you look out for that? And I think that's what this person is asking. Over to you, Governor.
Thank you. Well, our Otoga campaign was about getting rid of godfathers. You see, the issue of godfatherism, if I may put it that way, is part of the issues that stops us from getting women in more positions, because you have a godfather and a system that says, imposes on you what you need to do post-election. Now, the best way to go about it is to reach out to a wide base, a variety of people as much as possible, different women groups, different sponsors, so you're not beholden to one person. Yes, there's a possibility that you might find yourself in a position where just one person is your main sponsor per se, but a best way to handle that is to engage the person and see how you be able to work things out. But your focus must first be service delivery to the people. Whatever happens after that, it's the people that come first. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Service to the people. Would anyone else on the panel like to answer that before the next question? With you definitely know what that's about.
I know what he's talking about, but you know, in politics, when you've been in it for as long as some of us have been in, you will know that human nature drives most of the activities. And for people who support you, they really never ask you for allegiance. You give the allegiance yourself. And that is what happens everywhere. The problem comes in when you over give allegiance, and they call it absolute loyalty. I have not had anyone who has supported me who's asked me for absolute loyalty. Absolute loyalty means you look away from the wrongs, but you cannot, as a politician, look away from wrongs. The problem has been that we do not ever speak up. When you speak up and you have a mentor, it's easy for the mentor to go through and think through what you have said and do what is right. But most people get into it and say, no, I can never go against this man. He's my mentor. He paid every penny. He put me where I am. And that is when we turn them into this huge weird animals that we now see thereafter. For me, I will look any sponsor in his face and say, sir, what we're about to do is wrong. And that is where we differ. Until we're able to do that, we won't have mentors who will look out for us. We don't need that kind of absolute loyalty that turns a man who has supported you into that impossible person. And we are the ones that usually turn them into that impossibility, because we never see anything wrong about what they're doing. We never ask questions. We never tell them what they're doing is not acceptable to the people. And that is where accountability comes in. That is where conviction comes in. That is where commitment to whatever you're doing comes in. If you are a committed politician, you will definitely have mentors.
Thank you very much, Senator.
But then you will also be able to ask questions and to also be able to correct ills. And until we do that, we won't be doing enough for ourselves.
Thank you very much, Senator. So the boldness to challenge things that we believe are wrong. Okay, so I have a question from Olufumi Olaoshun. What meetings would you recommend? And I'll direct this to Senator Apiafi. What meetings would you recommend one interested in politics to attend? We mentioned the Congress. Is it open to all, or would one need a special invitation? So, Senator Apiafi, tell us about grassroots engagement. How does one who is starting out, they've heard all that we've had to discuss on this panel. How do they start out? Do they start at the Congress? Do they get a special invitation? How does it work?
Well, I'll start by saying there's a common saying that all politics is local. So it depends on your local environment. It depends on your state, your local government, and your people. So to start with, that's why you've heard most of us talk about mentors. You actually need to learn properly from somebody, not necessarily a financier, but a mentor. Just like Senator Lujimi said, you have to be careful when you're going into politics. It's to have a mentor means somebody who will guide you, who will tell you, who will give you some information about your local environment and the best way to have an intervention. But we have some politicians who have a financier and a mentor who just carries them and puts them in a position. Those are the ones that are actually find it very difficult to leave the Godfather. So you can't now look at the financier or the mentor in the face and say what you're doing is wrong. So first of all, your intervention or who you decide to associate with as a mentor is actually critical. And the level of relationship you have to develop with that mentor or financier. I've never had a financier, but I've had mentors. So that way you can have your independence. You can stand and say, this is wrong, this is right. And demand for things that you know your people need. And then be able to deliver service to your people and keep your integrity. And not being pushed to do things that are wrong or to go stealing from government coffers and all of that. So first, when you've identified a mentor, it's necessary, who has been in politics for long. Person will give you some guidance, some information. You don't just go into Congress. For you to even be a member, for you to even participate in the Congress, you have to be elected or appointed to be. Sorry, by your party, yeah, to be a member of, for you to go for the Congress. So first of all, you start. The mentor will tell you what is local to the politics you want to get involved in. And then, of course, you will start by, like His Excellency said earlier, your local area, you get involved in the social activities, weddings, burials, community activities. I mean, be known from your local area is absolutely important. That is also what gives you your independence, the grassroots politics. That's why you saw me mention the fact that in my state, we have women councillors. This is where women have been cheated in the politics in Nigeria. When you don't have women at the grassroots, women as delegates in elections, that is where you have problems. Because I tell you, no matter what anybody tells you, women support women. I've had my greatest support from women. So when you have delegates who are women, when you have women as local government chairmen, when you have women as councillors, these women will form the group of women, the critical mass of women that will support you when you go for Congress. So you don't start with Congress, you start by going to your local area to understand your local politics. And of course, just like any business you want to get into, you see whether there's a niche, whether there's an opportunity for you to take advantage of, to contest. If there's no opportunity, of course, zoning is very critical in our politics in Nigeria. So you have to also look at the issue of zoning. But before I round up, I would actually want to say something about what Ambassador Nkoyo has said about constitution and our legal system. Nigeria has been a big disappointment when it comes to domesticating conventions and protocols from African Union and United Nations. And that is why you can see all the other African countries. I happen to have been a member of the Pan-African Parliament, which is the legislative arm of the African Union. I've been a member of that parliament for about 12 years or 11 years or so. And I tell you, all these other countries will take all these protocols and conventions of the AU and domesticate them and make them part of their electoral system. But Nigeria has consistently refused to domesticate any of those protocols and conventions. Some of them are actually talking about parity. So these other countries are doing so. The Pan-African Parliament is doing it, but Nigeria is not. So that's what makes it a little bit more difficult for you to contest election in Nigeria. From the first Nigerian Constitution Amendment, I was part of it, and I knew the effort you put together to try and get gender issues to be in the Constitution. You will never succeed,
right?
Even as you are having a next Constitution Amendment. But what I would say is, work with the women, work from your local area, look for a political mentor, understand the local politics in your area. Local politics is different from every area, and it is important to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Senator. They've borrowed me like 2 minutes or 3 minutes for this session. And so I will be having one question for the ambassador and then 2 more for His Excellency. He seems to be getting a lot of the so Ambassador, your experience in the party, your experience regionally, and you've been speaking about the Constitution, you've been showing that it's possible if it's good in law. Can we do? One of our audiences are asking, Mrs. Kemi Ogunyemi, how do we get women recognized by their party and to break the structure, this toxic masculinity today? So how do we do on a party level? Is that the role that CSO, is that the focus? Should that be the focus of CSOs over in the next 4 years? Like, you know, people, whose responsibility, who can actually apply that pressure on the party to institutionalize, to not just put it in their constitution, but to also apply it so that INEC or election management bodies and the entire can hold them to it. Like you said in Kenya, they just sacked them because it was grounded on law. How can we do that, particularly with our party structure? If you can answer that in 1 minute, 2 minutes, sorry, that would be.
Well, thank you very much, Simi. Actually, our constitutions of all political parties in Nigeria does have a bit of quota. The problem oftentimes is that we don't go to court. I was a part. Is it okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you, ma'am.
The part of the problem is we never go to court to enforce. And also the Constitution is very stylish about stopping us from going to court. In the last convention of the People's Democratic Party, for example, we mobilized women. We said we have 35% in the Constitution. We mobilized the women to fill 35% of the positions. We brought out some of our strongest candidates and said to the women, time to run. And all of them were denied. All of them were denied. We explored the option of going to court, and we're told, oh, but the party constitution says you can't go to court, you must explore internal mechanisms for resolving the crisis. Now, first of all, let us say the constitutions have provisions. And many times we don't even use what is in the Constitution. However, those provisions are inadequate, only about the ANC and SWAPO in Southern Africa and in Namibia. These are not constitutional reforms. These are constitutional reforms within the constitution itself of the party. So going into the national convention next year, all our parties in Nigeria can get up if we massively, as women's organizations, demand that there shall be no participation without representation. What is going on is women are participating, but they are not representing. So we need to change the language of no participation without representation. Massively ask our constitutions of our political parties to revisit the affirmative action clauses. I know that the APC, the PDP, all of them have 35% in their constitution. However, it's never applied. But this is in relation to the party's organs. We need to take that one step. PDP has started doing something because there's been a lot of pressure on it, and that's beginning to bear fruits in the party organs itself. Therefore, going forward, I would suggest that in the next convention of all the parties, women, NGOs should demand for women's wings. We need to return to women's wings. That's what SWAPO and ANC are using in the context of their country to mobilize and pressurize within the party for the acceptability of women within the party. We need to get constitutional reforms in the party, in the political parties, as well as in the constitution. One doesn't exclude the other. There are different mechanisms of getting. This is what we call voluntary parties taking up the voluntary obligation to do something for themselves. And I'm sure His Excellency understands what I'm saying, and he's been a champion for women. I think this is a done deed. He's going to get all our constitutions to reflect this provision. Thank you. We need women's wings. We need youth wings. We need wings that deal with disabilities and all the others. Your Excellency, thank you very much. We look forward to you people doing it.
Your Excellency, no pressure. Thank you so much, Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo. I just have one final question for this segment, and it looks like one of your indigens. My governor, this is from Ramat Abdullahi. So will you be replicating what the real estate governor is doing in making women and vice chairman in local government area? That's a very specific question. I like this kind of competition. So my governor, from Ramat Abdullahi, will you be replicating what real estate is doing by making every vice chairman in local government a woman? Over to you, Governor.
Yes, Ramat, thank you. For me, this is one of the big takeaways of this Wimbiz conference. Rivers has done exceedingly well. We will go in that direction. I'm saying that is my will, that's what I want to do. Yes, there'll be challenges, but that's the way to go, certainly. Thank you.
We have the same in Cross River State. All our vices are women, and we have 3 councillors in every local government. And we did it, Imoke did it, Ayade has done it. So it's been I mean, maybe why we are not celebrating it is because we've been doing it for a long time. Thank you.
Oh, please share these stories. Thank you so much to our amazing panel. Before we go for our final word, Senator Olujimi, I have a surprise question. It's been itching my body. We're talking about getting off the sideline. This is from Simi Fajo Miracle to Senator Olujimi. Will you be running and get the sideline from the Assembly into the Executive Governorship 2022?
Well, I've always said I'm eminently qualified to contest. And of course I will. I contested the last primaries. I will contest again.
Oh, fantastic. And we at Wimpole and the audience, we're wishing you well. Thank you for your formal declaration on this platform. So to our, she has declared, and we will be looking out to our first female governor in 2022. That's wonderful. So we've heard a lot today. Before I hand over to Mr. Aziz to be wrapping up this dialogue, I just want to really thank you for being honest, being real. There was a lot of information on mentors, on sponsors, on detoxifying the space, no to guns, no to arms, no to youthful restfulness, even though, you know, Senator Apiafi was very bold in saying not to use youth for that reason. We thank you. Thank you to Ambassador, who just gave us those refreshing data points. And we from across the region, that hopefully as we go into our independence, we've got a lot of reference by, we've got enough firepower to actually fight, because it's hard to fight when you don't have a reference point. So we say thank you to our governor, our agenda-friendly governor. Thank you so much for taking time out. And I will hand over to the panel to give a final word. But before they give their final word, to that woman who is in the audience, who is qualified, and and who is passionate and wants to get the game and wants to get off the sideline. We need a final word from you. But before you do your final word, I would also like you to give us I would like the audience to walk away from this session that they knew the governor, ambassador, our amazing senators a little bit better. So if you could give us your favorite quotes, something that got you off the sidelines, a quote you remembered from somewhere. The governor particularly wants to know what's on your playlist, your song that got you off the sidelines first time, second time. What is that song? What is that music that gets you off the sideline? What's a favorite book that you have? So favorite quotes, favorite song, favorite book that got you off the sidelines, just anything so that we can know you a little bit more. And as you do that, I would appreciate if you can wrap up in 1 minute, say your final word to the woman that will be running in 2022, 2023, from ward councillor to local government chairman to state governor, and even possibly to the presidency in 2023. Who knows? Miracles happen. Thank you so much, our distinguished speaker. Over to you. So Senator Olujimi, you can start since your mic, you're unmuted.
Thank you very much. For me, we need to all get out of the sidelines. And what worked for me was a book I read. It said, get off, put your foot in. And I believe all women should do that. The time has come for us to pull all the strings and ensure, like Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo said, that at the convention and congresses, we put enough women in all the various setups within the party so that the women can support other women. For me, I will contest, and I am asking other women to come in and contest. And that is when we'll be able to increase our number. The name of the game is increased numbers. We should also work together to ensure that we prosecute our parties for the 35% affirmation, and then we also put everything in place for the constitution review that is ongoing. I wish you well. Thank you very much.
Thank you much, Senator. Thank you so much. Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo, your favorite quote, favorite book, favorite song, and final word, 1 minute.
Just quickly to say, I've just been reading a book that says Anti-Woman, which is a Black woman in America who is asking the question of the double jeopardy of not just being female, but also being Black. That's a great book to look at. But also Justice Ginsburg's words to me says, so often in life, things that you regard as an impediment turn out to be great, good fortune. Don't be distracted by emotions like anger. We shall not be distracted. Let's go out there and get this business done. Leadership is also for women. If this country needs to transform, and I hope it is looking to transform, it's got to be a partnership between men and women. And I know there are many men who believe in this, and hopefully we'll be able to find more allies to work with going forward. It's not impossible, it's doable. You just need to break out. And please don't talk about money or violence when you are thinking of getting out into this. Think first about what you can do for your country, and then think later about those impediments of violence and money. It's the
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
That must drive the vision.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. RV, that's a bit fun. So thank you for that quote, and thank you for those final words. Senator Betty Apiafi, your final word, please. Is she on?
Thank you.
And your favorite book or song or quote?
Okay, as the chair women committee in the Senate, I'd like to encourage more women to participate come 2023, and we'll be willing to meet with groups in conjunction with the Ministry of Women Affairs. I'm sure we'll come up with some programs at that point to see how we can encourage more women. My final quote, I will not finish it, but I'll start it. I know you know it very well. The Holy Book tells us that from the days of John the Baptist, can somebody complete that for me? You can complete it for me, Simi. From the days of John the Baptist. That is what the women need to do.
The violence shall take it by force.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. And to my governor, Your Excellency, thank you so much for being here. Otoga was like the coolest slogan in 2019. So personally, I want to know what song is on your playlist, your favorite book or quote, and your final words for our audience. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, can you unmute? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There we
Yes.
go.
Like
We can hear you.
Your limitation is only your imagination. I'm talking about current playlist. I have Wizkid on it. I love the song Ojuelegba. Burna Boy. Dangote, which is says, Dangote still they find money, which is to say, Dangote, as rich as he is, he's not sitting on the sideline and he's there every day pushing and pushing to say, I want to achieve more. He has a goal to get and he's going for his goal. And so we shouldn't sit down, get off the sidelines and go for your goals. But one thing I'd also like to add is on this gender issue, affirmative action and incentivization key to achieving these goals. What do I mean by affirmative action? Today we have the Federal Character Commission. Why don't we have a commission for women to push women agenda? The National Commission, a law passed in the National Assembly on incentivization. There's this program which the World Bank and the federal government have for states. It's a $750 million program. It's called the SIFSTAS program, which is the States Fiscal Transparency, Accountability, and Sustainability Program for Results. What is this? It means that the World Bank and the federal government set goals for states. For example, if you publish your budget online, you get $2.5 million. If you have a procurement agency, a procurement law, you get something like that as well. If you do open budgetary debates within the communities, you get $2-3 million. So at the end of the year, you walk out with about $5 to $10 million, depending on the marks you take. We can have this for gender issues to say state governments that exceed 35% or achieve 50% get X amount of money in cabinet, in public service, in MDAs. So a table can be set where states can work out between 10, 20 million. Now this SIFTAS agenda for next year, states can earn up to $20 million by taking the right points. Now, if you have this sort of incentivization for women, gender issues, and the state says that, wow, I can get $20-30 million in a year for having inclusiveness, you see that many states, subnational governments will be more proactive in what they do with women issues, because I've seen how states are struggling to get this $10-20 million, especially now that
COVID. Ooh, it's frozen.
It's
Frozen.
frozen.
Oh.
Okay,
money is not coming
but I think
from anywhere. The economies are down. So that's how pushes it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Now, I'm handing over to Mrs. Adeola Aziz to wrap up the dialogue. Thank you so much for taking time out. I'm truly grateful. Mrs. Adeola Aziz, over to you.
Oh, wow. What an afternoon. You cannot imagine the adrenaline going around my body. It's been such an experience this afternoon. We cannot But thank you all speakers. You have been brilliant. You have been real. You've kept it really, really, really practical. It's been a learning experience with all the reference points. You've inspired us and you have fed us well. This food, I do not want it to digest. With all the closing remarks, thank you, Governor Jassy, Governor Otoge. These are all the comments that I'm reading on the chat box that they've taken to describe you. Some said you were so young at heart. Thank you for being the he to she, the he for she for us. And we sincerely hope that once you've taken these steps, embracing the women, showing what we are made of, right? Other governors will be inspired and they'll follow your footsteps. And we know that you're a quiet, silent, but effective operator, and it will happen. Senator Olujimi, we're waiting for you. We will back you up. As our first governor, we will back you up. Trust me, we will certainly do that. Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo, all those reference points are learning points. We are back at work and we will definitely follow those steps. Senator Betty Epiafi, yes, we've always said it, mentors, sponsors, they help. And we recently just launched our own mentoring session as well, of mentoring for politicians to be. And I think you're one of our mentors. If you're not, we're going to make sure you are one of them because you are a living experience. You've just been wonderful, honestly, and we have all been inspired. And of course, the poll also showed all of that. You know, for our attendees, you've been engaging and you've been attentive. Without you, there will not be a webinar. Without you, there will not be a webinar that, we will have for us to be fed with. And I thank you, all of you, for joining us, sacrificing your afternoon to be with us. And myself, Adiola Aziz, I'm a co-founder and a member of the Board of Trustees for Women in Management, Business, and Public Service, where our vision is to be the catalyst that elevates the status and influence of women and their contribution to nation building. Without politics, without women in politics, we cannot build a nation. And we have to just basically jump at it and move with it. And as we say in our slogan, women, we move, and we are moving. So finally, just please wait a minute for these announcements, which are vital and critical as we move on towards the end of the year, and we have a flagship conference coming up. So just bear with me for one more minute and I'll be over, and you can all go and enjoy your wonderful evening. Now, we have an evaluation link, which will be sent to you all in the follow-up email. Please endeavor to fill it. We want to hear your opinion about this webinar. This opinion is essential, is important, it is critical, because with your opinion, there's a lot we're going to do with it. We're suffering, we need more sponsorship. Sponsorship, we do not want lack of sponsorship to stifle the work we're doing at Wimpole. And with the feedback that you give to us, we will use it as ammunition to seek for sponsors. So also, we kindly invite our dear participants who are not Wimbiz associates to please come on board. There's so much value. Once you join Wimbiz as an associate, you are not the same. Once you come in, we do not leave you the same. You just transform for good. And to those of you who are already associates, being an associate is commitment, is intentional. Please pay your dues. Your dues are critical to the continuous success of Wimbiz. So as I said earlier, the Wimbiz 19th conference is scheduled to hold virtually on Friday, November 6th, 2020. You please take advantage of the early bird registration and pay the sum of $25,000 until the 30th of this month, which is next week. Don't miss it. You cannot afford to miss it. What does Wimbiz do? We only give value, value upon value. Don't keep it to the last minute. Don't procrastinate. Pay now. So, Wimpole, It was a struggle, like I said earlier on, getting a sponsor. But can we all please give an e-clap to Periscope Consulting? Periscope Consulting, thank you for believing in us. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for having our back. You know, up until last week, we were saying who will sponsor us. Periscope came through. We will not forget you. Thank you so much. So, without much ado, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and Executive Council of Women in Management, Business and Public Service, Wimbiz, and the Wimpole Committee, I would like to thank you all once again. To our speakers, you were wonderful. To our moderator, Simi Faje Mirokun, you were excellent, excellent, wonderful, and you did a fantastic job. And our dear attentive participants, we cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much. Thank you all for sacrificing a Saturday to be with us. We enjoyed your company, and I hope you also enjoyed us. We appreciate you. We do not take you for granted. And to all our panelists, again, honestly, thank you so, so much. I hear for she, Governor, kudos. Bye-bye and good evening.